Okay, folks, I've had a couple suggestions that maybe I should show making up a couple of different boxes. So this is a standard outlet box. You're allowed to have up to 4 12-gauge wires in it by national code. I want to emphasize there are local codes that may supersede everything I'm telling you. But by national code, you can put in 4 boxes. The other thing is too, I use my hand back to the heel as a marker for how long the wire should be. So when you're pulling this stuff, sometimes it's a little hard to get the exact length, or maybe you're at the end of the roll. So you cut that off to the same length. You take a utility knife, you reach back into the box as far as you can. You strip it. They make other kinds of strippers. I prefer utility knives, but by no means is it the only way of doing it. Be careful not to slice yourself. Cut that off. You're cutting off the outer jacket of insulation only on both wires. And this is for a regular, going to be for a regular duplex outlet. That's 2 outlets in one. Cut back in here a little further. There we go. And we'll slice that off. So, now, I again want to emphasize there's more than one way to do this. That's perfectly acceptable. What I do is I take my 2 ground wires and I twist them together 3 or 4 times. Okay? Then I take my side cutters and I snip off the wire sticking out to my right. Then I take one of these green grounding wire nuts with a hole in the top. What you do is you slide that over and you tighten it down. And I tighten until it starts to twist the grounds in the box, and it's gonna be, you're not gonna be able to see that. Then when I tuck my wires in, I roll them in. You roll them in, you tuck them in the back of the box. Some electricians will strip those wires now. I prefer to strip them later. That way if the painter or the drywall people get paint or mud in here, you're taking that off when you strip the inner jacket of wire. And that box is made up. Just that quick and simple. I'm gonna shut you down here while I move positions, and I've got a 3-way or a 4-way switch box that isn't made up yet, and I'll show you how I do that one. I dropped my utility knife the other day and shattered it into a billion pieces, so I'm gonna pick a new one up this weekend. So for right now, I don't advise doing this. I have just the blade. For just 2 wires, I'll go ahead and do it. And that's why you're never sure when you're gonna lose control of it. Sounds like my wife's going to be coming up here. I hear our side-by-side running. Okay, cut that off. So, now remember, neutrals by code since the early 80s or late 70s, whenever it changed, neutrals have to be done, they carry them through the switch box. So you can't use these white wires as switching wires, except in very rare circumstances. So you wire nut, these together, and you roll them back in, because your white wire, unless you for some reason have to take it apart, your white wire is never used for anything again. So your white wire is out of the way. Bring your ground wires up. You see me do this. 3 or 4 twists. Snip off the one sticking out to the right. Put a ground wire nut on. And then find your blacks and your reds that go together. Twist them together so that when you go to make these up in 3 months, or however long it is, you'll know which ones go together. And then I just roll them back into the box. And we're all tucked in. So with that, I'll shut this down. Not a lot going on. And we'll bring you back when there's something more interesting happening. We come down here. The last switch box I have to make up in the house is this one. Now this is the last switch in line for the garage lights. And you'll notice that I don't have any wires stapled or anything else yet. All the way up, those are loose. So I'm going to show you why that is here in a minute. We'll show you the lights. So you see the round blue boxes. This side, all 3 are up. And then the square box is for the garage door outlet. Okay, well, this isn't the sturdiest thing I've ever had set up here. So I guess I'll show you and then I'll reset it. So what I do is I have these wires loose, and that enables me to staple them and flatten them out in order so they're stapled nice and flat to the stud. That isn't the end-all be-all. It's not super important. You'll never see these wires again unless you do a major remodel. I just prefer to do it that way. So I'm trying to get this other ladder set up here so it's in position. And it's not in the best. So I think the best bet do this. And we'll flatten these out up here. I don't think you can see me in the video right now. As I said in an earlier video, back in Ohio, Montgomery County, Ohio anyway, the inspector, when they started, would not have let some of these angles fly that we use here. So then we'll twist this wire flat. Obviously, the more wires, the more complex this is. And then because this is the wire closest to the stud, we'll put it in first. And then we'll put this one in here. I have been known to have to take these back out again and untwist them if I don't get it right. Like I said, I prefer to see no twists in the wire. It's not realistic in some applications. But here on the studs, I think it's important. Again, there's electricians out there going to say I'm wasting my time. This isn't critical. And again, it probably isn't. It's just me. Okay, so notice we've got a staple there within 4 to 6 inches of the box. That's required by code. So the wires need to be the same length. Again, sometimes we just don't have time to get them perfect. We'll snip those off. Take out a utility knife, be very careful. Again, they make several different kinds of strippers that do this, and it's all a matter of what you get used to and what you find easy. Here you've got, again, the neutral will not attach to the switch. Your white wire is your neutral most of the time. There's rare occasions where it's not, but strip the wires. The guy that helped me do this, he prefers brown wire nuts because he's got a tool where he can get the twist on these one-handed. I prefer the yellows, but again, just teach their own. So I take that white wire and I took it clear in the back of the box because it'll never be needed again. So then you keep your red and black and your black separated. I'll show you why in a minute. Put 3 or 4 twists on your ground wires. You only need one to attach to the switch. Clip the one off. Slide your wire nut down. There's a hole in the middle of the wire nut. Tighten it up. Okay. Now, these are your travelers coming from the other switch I showed you. So you twist these together. This is how we mark them so we know. Twist these together. Those are your travelers. You'll know which 2 wires they are when you go to put the switch in later. You take your hot wire. This is the wire that's out to the lights. And we just wrap it real tight like that and stick it out. If you can see that real tight wrap there. And we take and curl them up back in the box, and the electrical is made up. Now that's the last switch box I have to do here in the house. So I wanted to get that on video. Okay, once again, what I think is not important has been semi-overruled here. And I can't do this and hold the camera or even close. So hopefully this shows up. So what I've done, I had already wired the first box in line. I put up the last 2 boxes for the lights, and I've already pulled the wire all the way down to the last box. So what that enables me to do is come up here and always make sure you're doing it from the right direction. So this is the wire, this wire here is going to the last box. I always loop it over my light fixture box or my switch box. And that usually gives me enough. And I'll pull a little more wire and tuck it into the ladder so I don't lose it. And we'll take and we'll tuck the wire in. There's clips on these boxes that hold these wires. And we'll put a wire staple in again between 4 and 6 inches from the box. And I've never seen an inspector get out his tape measure and get really picky, but I'm sure they're out there. So you tuck this wire in here, other side of the box, about the same length, and go ahead and staple the wire to the other side of the box. When you're nailing the eye joist, you always want to make sure there's nothing on the back side you're going to drive these staples into. And I've done it. I think everybody who's wired a house out there has. I haven't done it on this house. So now this is a light, not a switch, and not an outlet. So in this case, you do this very similar to an outlet. You strip the outer jacket back. Peel it out. Again, I don't like stripping my wires before the paint and the drywall mud's been put on, because then you're just having to clean it off your wire ends to get a good connection. So, same thing on your ground. You're only going to have one attached ground for your light. And you twist them together. I usually, if there's one shorter than the other a little bit, I usually try to cut the shorter one off. It's easier if you have longer wire to make your connections. Same thing as an outlet. Twist your grounding wire nut up there. Coil your wires up. You want to get them deep in the box. Most drywallers use a router, and they will chew your wire up if it's not deep enough in the box. They'll nail the drywall up, and then they come back later with the router and cut it out. So that's a light box. Again, not much different from an outlet. And we'll be back with you when there's something a little more interesting to show you.